Hello, good morning. Me and my friend Miss Genevieve Peter, we choose our topic, which is suicide. The word suicide derived from Latin suicidum. Suicide is an act of intentionally causing one's own death. It can be mental disorder, physical disorder, substance abuse. Example of mental disorder: depression, bipolar disorder, personality disorder, anxiety disorder, etc. Example of physical disorder: chronic fatigue syndrome, which is unconsciousness. And example of substance abuse: alcoholism or drug addicts. There are 4 types of suicide. The first one, egoistic suicide. This is a type of suicide that is committed by people who see themselves as outsider or alone and not part of the social integration. The second one is altruistic suicide. The type of suicide occurs when involvement in a group is too high that they are willing to sacrifice their own life in order to fulfill some obligations for their group. And the third one is anomic suicide. This is a type of suicide come to be when there is lack of social regulations, and it occurs during high level of stress and frustration. Anomic suicide happens when there is a sudden or unexpected change in situation that leads them towards committing suicide as a means of escape. And the final one is fatalistic suicide. This happens when individuals are kept under tight regulations. This involves a place under extreme rules or high expectations set upon them, which removes the person's sense of self in individuality. Slavery and persecution are examples of fatalistic suicide. Genevieve will elaborate more on suicide and more on what causes suicide and how to stop suicide thoughts as a teacher, parents, and society. Genevieve will explain about the signs of people who are about to commit suicide and reflecting on the situations they are currently facing.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. I will elaborate more on suicide and more on what causes suicide and how to stop suicide thoughts as a teacher, parents, and society as a whole. There are some suicidal stress that affect people and cause them to have that suicidal thoughts. One is financial difficulties. Financial difficulties is when people, working class people with lots of denials or credits around, and when the owner of the money came and put pressure on them, and they give an excuse when to repay the money or when to give the money, and if they don't enough, they have other thoughts of causing problems or other suicidal thoughts. The second one is academic difficulties, where students are unable to learn or they find it hard to go to school or stay in the classroom and learn, and they have issues learning, or they have issues with teachers or other classmates, and they don't feel or they don't have that skills or ability to stay in a class, or they find it hard to do schoolwork or assignments, tests, and whatsoever. And the third one is relationship problems. That is for people with breakups or divorce in marriage, they tend to have lots of thoughts about their marriage life, so they end up committing suicide or attempt suicide. The fourth one is harassment and bullying. These are the people where they don't feel welcome because of harassment and how other people treat them in schools or in workplace or in a community or anywhere else. They don't feel welcome, or they have lots of threats in their life. They sometimes have the thought of causing suicide. These are the thoughts that these are some of the suicidal stress that most people go through in their lives. I talk more about attempt suicide, so I'll explain attempt suicide. Attempt suicide is when people harm themselves with the goal of ending their life, but they do not die. Okay, as a teacher or parents or in a society leader, knowing my student or knowing my family member is through their way of life or way of their living or performance in the class. There are some risks that people or students go through to face the suicidal factors. As a teacher, knowing my student is through their performance in class. They may have some risk factor thought of attempting suicide. Those types of thoughts may lead to poor performance in class. Or maybe back at home, they exposed to a family violence, include physical or sexual abuse, family history of suicide, mental disorder, or substance. Okay, to stop suicide thoughts as a teacher, parents, and society member, there are some facts that we have to do or come up with to help people with suicide thoughts. These are reducing factors mentioned above by giving people hope for a better life after solving a problem. Show some support, show some love and concern, and treat them in a way that they feel part of the family or society or class as a whole. Another one is in community or society, you have to organize a community programs, activities such as sports or church programs to keep young people and other busy so that the risk of suicide thoughts may reduce. Okay, if you come across a warning signs of suicides, like people talking about suicide, example, talking about wanting to kill or wanting to die, feeling empty and have no reasons to live, talking about death often, saying goodbyes to friends and families, or displaying extreme mood swing from suddenly change from very sad to very happy or calm. These are the warning signs that you have to look in people with suicide thoughts. If they are saying such, that means they have suicide thoughts, so you have to talk to them nicely and politely. If it's not helping them, you have to call care centers to talk to such people to give them hopes to live for. Thank you. And for the summary of our topic, I will let Barbara to summarize and give some points or methods of reducing the risk of suicidal thoughts or attempt suicide. Thank you.
To conclude, suicide is the act of intentionally causing one's own death. Suicide is categorized in 4 groups like egoistic suicide, altruistic suicide, anomic suicide, and fatalistic suicide. The act of suicide has been dated back to ancient Greek and Rome as an act of sin. Now suicide is seen as a person's insanity. To finish off, limit methods of suicide such as firearms, drugs, and poisons. Secondly, treat mental disorder and substance abuse. Thirdly, careful media reporting. And 14, improve economic condition. And the final one is show love and accept everyone in the community by helping each other. Thank you, and that's the end of our presentation. Hope you enjoyed.